Hello everyone. I'm back. I turned on my camera right before I started this episode and I looked at myself and the first thing I thought was I look busted. Ugh. So all I did was add some lipstick and now I feel like infinitely better. I feel like this is okay enough for me to post online. I'm gonna scoot this back. I feel very claustrophobic. Like you guys are a little too close. Okay, today's episode is a continuation from actually 2 years ago. When I first moved to New York, I created a 3-minute episode, which I didn't even know I did episodes that short back then. I've been feeling guilty. It's even worse because I am Asian. I just am also afraid that when I look back on my life and, because your family's not going to be there forever. So even though right now they're in my life and they're super important and influential, down the line they will be less influential because they're not going to be here forever. But I watched the video back because it's a video that actually gets a lot of views till this day. I get a lot of feedback from it and a lot of people still comment on that video once in a while saying, this really resonated with me and whatnot. And now that it's been 2.5 years since I've created that video, since I've moved to New York City, I want to just update on that whole topic because it is very true. If you are somebody who really cares about the parents, who is very close to the parents, who are lucky enough to have their parents be really close to them and key people in their lives, it's really hard to move away from them when you know that that is something you really want to do. Yeah, let's get into the episode. But before we do that, Hilo Buffalo. All right, I'm inserting myself into this podcast, which is why I'm wearing something completely different. But I was just looking at and editing this part of the podcast, and I hated it. I hated the way I did my Hilo Buffalo. So I'm going to do it again. And it's going to be really fun. Starting with the high, I just really, really love having a good phone call or FaceTime call. I think that will take me out of my life. It's just super fun to catch up with people. I've been having some really fun FaceTime calls. I actually called John, Luke, and Dill. You guys have seen them on my channel already. And I'll put their channels here or in the description. But I FaceTime them often, fun fact, guys. And they're also my first online friends. And we just had the funniest FaceTime calls. They were 3 to 4 hours long. John Luke was telling me all his dating drama. And it was so funny to hear his dating drama so extensively, which he'll never share to anybody. Dill, he's British. And so he was trying to practice his American accent. And it was just not going well, which is why the phone call was going so long. And that's my high. With my low, which is also having to do with a call. This is when a call doesn't go well. But basically, guys, I've been walking a really interesting fine line between keeping tattooing a business versus a hobby of mine and keeping it something that I enjoy doing without burning out, which has turned out to be a lot harder than I expected. For one, I am currently on a new team and working more hours than I've worked since starting tattooing at my corporate job. And I'm still trying to tattoo at the same time. And I've realized recently that I am not superhuman and I need to dial it back. But also it's been rough because now that my parents know what's up, and I'm sure a lot of you guys might have experienced this, but money becomes a very real thing and a really fun conversation topic for parents to talk about. And so I've been concerned that I am turning into a money-making machine, which is to a lot of people exciting because they're like, oh, you're making more money because now you have 2 jobs, which is true, but I'm dying because I am doing twice the work. It is not without sacrifice. And I think It's a hard thing to distinguish, especially when I've been doing, honestly, part of it is my fault. I've been doing a good job of not really showing the extent of tiredness I am and how draining all of this has been and how messy other parts of my life have become because I am overdoing it in terms of working. I think it hasn't been very much acknowledged, and it's been a rough conversation to have. Next is my buffalo. So this is on the way home. I was on the train and I was leaning against a pole and just minding my own business, going on my phone, reading my book like I always do when I'm on the train. And for a second, I look up from my phone and I'm like, just looking around. And I see this girl who's sitting on the train and she looks right at me and she's like panicked eyes and she starts walking towards me and she's like this, but just imagine really, really frantic. I'm not doing a good job of like impersonating her, but yeah. And she was like making these crazy hand gestures and she was walking towards me and I was like, oh, she's having a panic attack. Like, is she okay? But then she grabs my arm and she says, you need to move. And I was like, what the heck? So I move and then she like points her finger at the bench that I was like kind of leaning on. And I turn around and this girl who's around my age, she's literally like knocked over like this and her head's like on her shoulder and she's like fully limp. She looks like any other girl who went out and she's throwing up all over the seat, like so much throw up to the point where it was like sliding down the seat and it was like dripping off the sides. And right where my leg was a pile of throw up. The girl who like pushed me over, she moved me fast enough for me to dodge that pile of throw up. It's like sliding down and it was so much throw up. And she wasn't even done. She just kept throwing up. Poor girl. I like wanted to help her, but it ended up being my stop at that moment. And she looked like she was fine because the moment she finished throwing up, she kind of like just wiped her mouth and she was like, okay. She was like more conscious because she got the poison out of her. But yeah, poor thing. She was by herself too. And I'm sure she just went a little crazy. And the train ride always gets you. I always talk about this, but if you ever get too drunk, getting onto some type of transportation vehicle is a perfect way to throw up. And also just poor people who have to clean that up. Oh, God. And the poor people who got onto that train after she threw up. That also sucks. Alrighty, I just recorded that entire episode just to have it not be recorded. And this has happened so many times. I should make it a thing. Like, this is like a key part of my podcast now. It's actually so freaking annoying. Okay, but anyways, you would think after doing so many episodes that this wouldn't happen anymore, but it happens more than it's ever had. This is a continuation of the episode that I posted 2.5 years ago. This is an update about how I feel about moving away from my parents, whether or not I feel guilty still now that I've lived here for 2.5 years on my own. And the answer is a quick yes. I still feel very guilty. And no, it's not all the time because that's very dramatic. No one feels one emotion all the time. But I do still feel guilty. It does come in and out. There's highs being here where I just kind of don't remember them, to be honest, and I don't think about them. But then there's lows where I do think about them a lot. Think about how fast time is going. I get nervous about whether or not I should stay here any longer, I should go home, what it will look like in the future. Should I even move somewhere else? Even though I want to move somewhere else, should I? And whether it's a good idea with my family. Before I really get into the details, I want to mention that in my situation, it's a little bit different because my parents are separated. For my dad, I don't really have to worry about him because he lives with his girlfriend. And so I feel like he has like this family that he can be around, and I have the peace of mind of knowing someone is watching over him. He's not alone. My mom, on the other hand, is a little bit of a different situation. There are times when she actually doesn't have anyone in the house, so she's by herself, where everyone she's with is living somewhere else. So my brother might be at school or my grandma's on a trip. She does have a boyfriend, but she doesn't live with him, and so she sees him sometimes. For the most part, it's okay because she usually has somebody with her. But it is really hard when I know that my brother has gone back to school and he's like living in his apartment and she's pretty much by herself. And so with that being said, I still moved to New York. And with that being said, I still don't really regret it. I'm still happy to be here, and I love being here, and I feel more myself and confident and just all the things that New York does to me. I think that what has helped me, so this is the kind of difference between that last video. When I made that last video, I didn't know how it was going to go. I didn't know whether or not I was even going to stay there past a year. I didn't know how much guilt I would feel, and I didn't know how it would feel every time I went home and came back. Every time I do, till this day, and I go home back and forth very, very often, till this day, my mom and I still get very, very sad every time we leave each other. I mean, I think I cry almost every single time. She cries every single time for sure. And it makes it really hard for me because I'm already sad, period. And then seeing her sad because I decided to do this doesn't make it easier. What has honestly been helping me, and this is kind of ironic, is I've been just giving extra tender love and care. And so I feel closer to my parents than I've felt in a while because I'm just so transparent and so in their lives, and they're still in my lives, even though they don't exactly see my life and they don't physically see me every day here. They know exactly what's going on because I keep a very open communication with them. I call them at least 3 times a week, and these calls I'm not distracted in. I make sure that I like sit with them and talk to them and ask them how they're doing and tell them about my life in detail. And these conversations go from like 20 minutes, an hour, 2 hours, whatever it is. And I feel like that's super duper important. So that's something that I've been doing actively to make sure that I feel that I'm still close to them and that I still care about them so that they know that. But then also I knew that when I came to New York that a huge part of coming here was the increased expenses. And it's not just because it's really expensive to live here. It's not just the rent. It's not just the standard of living with the food, whatever it is. It's because I go home so goddamn often. And a lot of people think it's funny that I do this. And they're like, oh, you're back again. And I'm like, yeah, I'm back again because I want to see my family and I have people back at home that I want to be with. And I know that time is precious and you're not guaranteed it. So if I can, I will go home every season. And I stay there for not just, a few days. I stay there for weeks and I hang out with them. And so I'm gone for a good amount of time during the year. And I spend $400 to $600 every single time I go home. So basically, I spend around $2,000 a year just to go home. That's not including like vacations. So I will have vacations with them, but I also still go home. And so this year, it was a very expensive traveling year. I traveled back and forth. I'm actually going home in like a few days to surprise my mom for her birthday, or celebrate my mom's birthday. I was trying to surprise her, guys, and basically I booked this flight. I didn't tell her because I was like, I'm going to surprise my mom for her birthday. One of my bucket list items is to like be home for my mom's birthday, which is kind of sad and kind of weird, but I've always just missed my mom's birthday because it happens to be during a time of year when it's awkward for me to go back home because I just wait for Christmas to go back home. So I always miss it, and I just end up telling her happy birthday over the phone, which I just want to be there for her because she's been somebody who really makes my birthday feel very special, and so I want to do that for her. And so it's not like a special year or anything, but I was like, what if this is so dark, knock on wood though, but I was like, you don't know if you're gonna get another birthday with her, you don't know what's about to happen next year, so just in case, you should just go because you can. And so I was like, okay, I will book the flight. So I booked the flight for this year to make sure that I can be there in person for her birthday. But anyways, I don't even know where I was going with that. Yeah. Oh, and this time when I was leaving my mom in September to come back to New York, she got sad. Not a surprise. I got sad, not a surprise. But then like I saw her sad, and then I was like, I can't just watch her be sad. So then I just freaking caved in. I couldn't hold the surprise in. And I was like, Mom, you don't have to be sad because I have a surprise. I'm coming back for your birthday. So I'll see you in 3 weeks. I was going to surprise you, but you know what? I'll just tell you now. I'm going to be there. So we'll have fun. Okay? Don't be sad. See you in 3 weeks. And then she was like, what? And it freaking sucked. It would have been way better. I know it would have been way better to surprise her, but I literally could not hold it in. She was so sad. I was like, I'm going to die. I like literally cannot leave her like this. And I remember texting my family and friends and being like, oh, should I tell Mom? I just want to tell Mom so bad. So I told her. I freaking caved in. Whatever. I don't even care anymore. I'm glad she's happy. Okay. Point blank. I'm trying to say I make all these changes. I've sacrificed more money and time to make this work. Like I mentioned, all these things that I've been doing have really kept my relationship with my parents as strong, if not stronger, than it was before I had left. And it is really true. Distance makes the heart grow fonder. I really feel, ironically enough, that I value my relationship with my parents, and I just appreciate them more and put a lot more effort into being with them and spending time with them now that I'm living on my own. And honestly, it kind of makes me feel even happier that I moved away, because what happens when I live with them is I kind of take them for granted. I'm not gonna lie, take them for granted that I just see them every day, that they're just always going to be there. And so I don't go out of my way to hang out with them or speak to them and ask them how they're doing. I just assume that they're doing okay because I see them in the morning and whatnot. And I talk to them actually way less than I do now. And I don't really have these like full on conversations with them because I see them all the time. So I'm like always making plans to hang out with other people because I'm like, oh, they're home. Like I see them morning and night. I don't feel as close in the theoretical sense, but I am physically close to them. It can be hard, especially on the days when I get very existential and I get into one of those thought pattern spirals or whatever, where I'm like, you don't know what's going to happen next. You don't know when you're going to die. You don't know when everyone else is going to die. Anything could happen at any moment. And so you can't take it for granted. Are you sure you want to be here? Like, what if that was the last time you saw your family and everyone's getting old so fast and like they're not going to be agile forever and young like the way that they are right now? And my parents are really good at hiding and faking when they're feeling not that great to protect me from knowing that they're not feeling great, which is so annoying, which is very thoughtful of them as well. But it's easy for me to assume most days that things are going to be fine and that my plan to go home in a few years will work out and we'll be all a happy dandy family and we'll all hang out and they'll still be healthy and just the same. And so we can all do these things that I want to do with them like I planned. But that's not always the case because life plays its little games and tricks. And so you're not really guaranteed that at all. And so it is a trade-off. I do realize that. But I'm still doing what I can. There's like a whole thing that happens when I go home for too long where I just don't feel great and it shows. It shows in my physical appearance. It shows in how I speak. My whole being is just not at its best. And knowing that this is a place where I feel very good in and out, I feel like that is also a perk of being here, where they don't have to carry that burden of like seeing me feel that way. And I don't have to constantly feel shitty. Just so that this episode doesn't end up being a repeat of the one 2.5 years ago, I wanted to show you guys how I'm making it work and how you can make it work. Last time I made this episode, I had no idea where it was going to go. I didn't know if it was going to work out, if the guilt was really going to eat at me to the point where I was just like, I gotta go home. But clearly not. So 2.5 years later, I learned how to figure it out. I just accepted, certain things and decided to put more effort in. And now I feel pretty good about it. And so every year I still think about whether or not I should stay here, and I'm still going to continue doing that. I'm still going to continue feeling guilty on some days, but overall, I'm still happy to be here for now. All right, so hopefully that helps you guys in making some decision or feeling a little bit better or figuring out what to do to make yourself feel better. I hope you guys give some extra love to all the people you care about, whether or not they are physically near you or physically very, very far from you. Okay, bye.